fascinating, the research that you have done. And talk to us about who actually was running these sorts of ads. What actually made you realize that they were in some way suspicious?
Good question. So we examined the 5 million paid ads on Facebook. They're exposed to nearly 10,000 volunteered users who represent the voting age population in the United States. We tracked the sources and the sponsors behind these political ads. We realized that most of the groups who ran these divisive issue campaigns are anonymous, meaning that unidentifiable, untrackable suspicious groups that have no public footprint, or unregistered ASTRF groups, or nonprofits who did not file a report to the FEC, Federal Election Commissions.
What sort of ads were they running?
We focused on divisive issue campaigns, such as the issues like abortion, gun, LGBT, racial conflict, nationalism, and then terrorism, and some candidate scandals. So it included various issues. For example, veterans before illegals that emphasize the division within the public, or the Syrian refugees are attacking us, that emphasize, that raise the fear and the threat, things like that. Some of the ads contain a candidate attack, like arrest Hillary, things like that.
And why don't you think Facebook really was able to find or flag these ads at the time, flag them as suspicious? And knowing what we do now, do you think that the activity would be more easily able to be tracked and shut down in the future?
That's a good question. I think there are two issues we have to highlight here. So one is that it's just that the way digital political campaigns work on social media, so-called dark posts, meaning that ads are seen to only a small segment of the population. So the ad content are not not necessarily publicly accessible. That's the way it works, and that's the big difference between the broadcast advertising. So it's not just a Facebook's fault. That's the way it works. But another thing I really want to emphasize is that the regulatory loopholes. Currently, there is no law adequately addresses digital political campaigns in the United States. A lot of researchers offered some explanations for why we found these anonymous groups rampant, or fake news organizations are rampant in the social media. But the issue is that it is not about not so much about affordance, not so much about people's psychology of being selectively exposed to certain media content. It is because there are loopholes where unknown actors could take advantage of these loopholes. So in the future, if we have adequate regulatory policies or guidelines, this gap might be tightened.